All right, we're here today to show you how to install your catch can on your Jeep JL 392. What we've got here in your package would be your catch can with the fittings for the install. It's also going to come with hose for the install, one coupler, and a nut. Now that hose doesn't always have the braid or these decorative end fittings, so in which case it'd just be the plain rubber hose. In this case, we've got the rubber hose with the outer braid option. Also, one thing to point out is on the decorative end fittings, there's going to be 3 smaller. Those are all going to go kind of to the fittings that we supply. You'll see they easily fit on here. And the larger is actually going to go to the PCV inside the vehicle. Okay. So the only tool you're going to need is a 13mm socket and ratchet. The 13mm socket is going to need to either be a deep socket, or you can have a short with an extension on it. You'll see where we need to reach. We're going to have to clear a couple things. So a deep socket usually just works the best, and a smaller wrench will get in there a little bit easier as well. We'll move over to the vehicle now and show you where this install is going to take place. What we're looking for here is the PCV with the hardline hose to the elbow at the air intake. This hardline hose is going to come out between this elbow and the hardline hose, but on this end we're going to come off all the way to the rubber boot on the PCV. And then our mount is going to end up mounting right here on the back side of the alternator. This bolt is going to stay in place. We don't want to move it at all for the adjustment of the alternator, but we've provided a nut that's going to actually tighten that bracket on right here, and our catch can will sit in this area. So the first thing to do would be to remove this hard line. Again, the rubber elbow is going to stay. So we disconnect that there. Eventually we're going to need it turned a little bit more to this position to connect to the hose here. And on this end, we want to keep the rubber boot with the hard line and take it off. It's going to be a little bit hard to pull. We've done it once, so it's a little easier now, but this is what we want. We want the actual fitting from the PCV, no rubber boot, because we're not providing an extra coupler. Our hose is going to go directly onto this. So if we grab our catch can, if you have the decorative hose fittings and the barbed and the outer braid, you can go ahead and get those assembled. You want to tuck that outer braid onto the decorative end fitting. Just don't let it fall off of there and get damaged after the fact. Same thing on this side. It is a little bit of a tight fit, because if somebody does decorative end fittings without a braid, we still want that to have a nice tight looking fit. Again, with care not to let that one fall off, or this one. You can actually just kind of install this other hose while it's out of the vehicle, make things a little bit easier. And I'm going to walk over now and we'll put this onto that alternator bolt and the nut that we're going to need behind it. Just preload that into the socket. So you can see the bolt there, and we've got the bracket going onto there. There is a little bit of a stop on that bracket, so that once we do get it tightened up, it's going to want to sit in a parallel fashion here. So we'll grab that nut. So I've preloaded it in the end of that socket, and we can put it on there, and then we'll be able to twist that and get it to start. We'll make sure it starts freely. You don't have it cross-threaded or anything. Quite a bit of thread in there, but we do have a locking flange nut there, so once it goes onto there, it's going to get a little bit tighter. But you want to go ahead and get it to where it's nice and snug, but don't over tighten. We don't want to risk damaging the alternator bracket here or anything else. Okay, so once that engages completely and you get it nice and tight, again, small wrench, not a lot of pressure, just get it to where the catch can's wanting to stay snug. It's not still trying to move, okay? Now we can finish connecting our hoses. Again, because sometimes people don't use the decorative end fitting and braid, this is going to be a little bit tighter of a fit, but you should be able to push that hose up onto that fitting. Just make sure that hose lays nice and flat down in here. We don't want it to hit anything when the hood's down, or be rubbing against anything else too much. Against this plastic is fine, but we don't want to be rubbing against anything sharp. And then on this side, with a couple, we provide the coupler. It's going to go into this rubber elbow, and we'll put that in there. Again, you would like a little bit of a gap in here, so we provide the length hose that you're going to need, and that would complete your install. Just make sure you try and wipe everything down, make it look nice and pretty. One thing about catch cans is they're not an install and leave, so we do need to empty a catch can from time to time. Recommended is every time you do an oil change, but the more you drive your vehicle, and especially the harder you drive it, you're going to have a little bit more oil in that catch can. So for this particular application, it's really hard to get our hand in here and loosen this bottom section, but to empty it, that's what we need to do. We need to lower the bottom section, go ahead and just drain it, dump it out, and then you can put it back on with maybe just a little bit of clean oil on the threads and the O-ring. So for this particular application, what we would do is go ahead and loosen that nut a little bit so that we can pivot this up. All we should be fighting here now is just kind of the hoses and where they kind of want to sit. But we can get this high enough to where we can easily, by hand, should not require a tool. We can loosen the bottom of the catch can. And we have used this catch can, so we've got some oil in there. Careful not to drop it as you get it to come loose. Pull that out of there, and you'll see we've got some of that blow by oil in our catch can, serving the purpose that we want. This mesh inside there is provided on purpose. This is just so that as the air comes, or the oil comes in kind of as a mist, it gives a little bit more surface area for it to cling to and settle to the bottom. So what we'll do is simply dump this out, put this mesh back in, we'll clean up these threads and this O-ring, but then we'll put some fresh oil on here so that we can put it back together. Just make sure your threads start nice and smooth. You don't have them cross-threaded. So once you're on there good, go ahead and tighten it up. Again, just by hand, you're not going to need any tool. As soon as that O-ring and thread bottom out, you should be good. Just a little extra force from there. No tools, no over tightening, or you will get that stuck on there forever. So it's still turning freely. There, I can feel it bottomed out, so I'm just going to put a little bit of force on it. Good to go. Of course, we'll lower this back into its seated position, tighten this nut, and you're good.